If you've been with my channel in the past, you'll know that this is the Marvel hill I am willing to die on, which is why I had to write a proper video on it after I rebooted my channel. Star-Lord is my favorite Marvel hero. I see myself in a lot of Peter's goofy and awkward traits. I love the opening credits of Guardians of the Galaxy because if I was actually capable of pulling off a heist, this is exactly how I would show up to it. Peter is a music-loving, goofy, morally gray character who gets to grow into a selfless person through his bond with his new friends. T'Challa is a fine character of his own. I felt like his inclusion in Civil War was handled better than his inclusion in his own movie, where he's actually kind of sidelined for a good chunk of it. He is serious, loyal, a tad reckless maybe, and a great king. Basically, he's everything Peter isn't at the beginning of Guardians. So why are we giving him the role of Star-Lord? The second episode of What If asks the question, what if T'Challa was picked up by Yondu and not Peter? Or, what if T'Challa became Star-Lord? Before we talk about this concept, why don't we talk about the episode itself? So, everyone in this episode is wildly out of character. Let's just start from the beginning. T'Challa is not goofy. He is not flirty.
Did he freeze? Like an antelope in headlights.
He would never accept an offer to be torn away from his family. But he is portrayed this way in the episode. Yondu goes straight and does things morally. We don't get to see this arc, by the way, like when we see Yondu do good things for the sake of Peter Quill. More on that later. T'Challa's father does not seem to try that hard to look for his son, because when you think about it, the Ravagers are well known all over the universe, and there's no way that the king of a major nation would have never heard of them. So why did he not send people to space to get T'Challa back? Seems like something he would do for his son. And Nebula is a completely different character. She's hardly recognizable. Literally, just look at her character design. Just listen to the way she talks. You don't do one of my other favorite Guardians this way. No, Marvel. But Thanos is the most egregious of all the character assassinations.
Enough man to admit when I'm wrong. T'Challa here showed me there was more than one way to reallocate the universe's resources.
Sometimes the best weapon in your arsenal is just a good argument.
Aye, aye, Commander. Although I still assert my plan was not without its merits.
Take Thanos from the movies and see if he can be convinced to give up what he believes to be his life purpose because one tiny Ravager with a cool accent told him to. But why do these character assassinations have to happen? Well, they have the story they want to tell and the characters they want to tell it with, but the two don't mix. So instead of going through the effort to change the story for the characters, they just alter the characters and probably hope nobody notices that insert character here would never do that. And then they use the guise of the whole what if concept to wave off any concerns like this. Oh, it's a different universe. Of course they would be different. But in T'Challa's case, yeah, I'm backtracking. I'm sorry, it just came to mind as I was writing the script. We can go on a rabbit trail about nature versus nurture. If you're unfamiliar with the concept, it's that as kids grow, there will be traits that they were born with and traits that they will learn from the adults in their lives and their peers. A child being of a more timid nature since the day she started talking would probably be nature. But if she were to one day out of the blue start making the same kind of jokes her father always makes at the dinner table, that may very well be nurture. T'Challa was kidnapped as a child. Children are more easily influenced than adults, so T'Challa could very well have grown up to be more jokey by spending a significant portion of his childhood with the Ravagers. We could explain this well through psychology, which I'll admit is really cool. But here's the other side of the coin. Fictional characters are fictional, not real. So while many may think this means you can do whatever you want with them, the opposite is actually true if you want the good faith of the public. We know these characters as they were first presented to us. We formed emotional attachments. We don't just love them because of superficial reasons, we love their personality, what they stand for, etc. So say you take that character and you change everything about them. Make them different, unrecognizable. Do you see the problem here? This is why so many people grew weary of the Justice League movie. Superman, who was a character that is a beacon of hope and optimism, was turned into a dark shadow of his former self. You could also make this case with SpongeBob. He started as a grounded character with a range of emotions, and then he just became a lesser Patrick. I guess you really are who you hang with. So what if takes T'Challa, takes his entire personality, and shoves it out the window, and expects it to work just as well? It doesn't. It feels off, wrong, defamatory even. Another thing about this episode is that it doesn't feel fun. It just feels preachy. From the get-go, we get our first major story change that comes from the change advertised in the title. In the real Guardians of the Galaxy, this is a legitimate fight scene between Peter and these other thugs over the Power Stone. In the cheap knockoff, however...
You do not disappoint my lord, so never so spry.
I'm right here. Hit me.
Right off the bat, we come across our first problem. This episode is anti-Peter Quill. Need I pull out a list? When Peter isn't Star-Lord, the Star-Lord name is known far and wide. When Peter isn't Star-Lord, the entire Ravagers gang goes straight. When Peter isn't Star-Lord, Thanos becomes big, harmless purple space uncle. When Peter isn't Star-Lord, Drax's wife and kid never died. When Peter isn't Star-Lord, the Collector is taken down. The Collector! The only thing that isn't good about Peter not being Star-Lord is that Ego finds him on Earth. And even that is a jab against Peter because it implies that Peter would join him and destroy that universe. This episode hates Peter Quill. This episode also hates everything the Guardians movies were. The Guardians were morally gray characters, whether you like that or not. That was the appeal of the movie. You weren't supposed to look at their bad deeds and be like, I want to steal things now and land myself in a max security prison. You were supposed to look at them and see that the world and the people in it are not black and white. We're supposed to watch their movies and see that even people with flawed moral compasses can still grow into better people and do good things. And that's why I'll always prefer Peter over Captain America and Gamora over Captain Marvel. So by making all these grand changes like, the Ravagers went straight. Their task is finding this herb that can feed lots of people. They pick up stray people along the way and they're just one big happy family from the start of the episode with no explanation. People start to feel a little lost. You're not writing for Guardians fans at that point. So why make the episode in the first place if you weren't going to respect where any of the ideas you're using came from? Just to recap, they take a character whose loyalty to his family and his kingdom is his defining characteristic, and they turn him into a planet-hopping Ravager. And they take a concept that was loved for its outside-of-the-box, morally gray take on a superhero story, and they turn it into a soapbox for a generic solve-all-the-world's problems story. But now here's the final nail in the coffin. Giving T'Challa the Star-Lord title at all. I sometimes think about this moment from the end of Guardians 1 and see the thought of anyone else taking this title from Peter.
But I'm going to a better place, and I will be okay. And I will always be with you. You are the light of my life, my precious son, my little Star-Lord.
Star-Lord was a special name given by Peter's mother. It was special to him because of his connection to her. So explain to me why T'Challa can just have it. Explain it. I dare you. Star-Lord is not the costume, or the powers, or even the circumstances. Star-Lord is Peter Quill, through and through. Now, it's not a Spider-Man thing where anyone can wear the mask, because Spider-Man is the powers. Straight up. Peter Parker is amazing and worthy of being Spider-Man, but so is Miles Morales. It works because the powers and the name are not tied to anything special to Peter. He was bit by a spider. He has spider powers. People seem to think that what works for Spider-Man, though, can work for anybody. But it hasn't worked for Iron Man. It hasn't worked for Cap. It hasn't worked for Thor. It hasn't worked for Doctor Strange. It hasn't worked for Captain Marvel. It hasn't worked for the Hulk. It hasn't worked for Black Widow. It won't work for Hawkeye, even though I will admit Kate Bishop is a lot of fun to watch. The only character apart from Spider-Man that might be able to use the same concept is Black Panther, and even then it only works if it gets passed down in the family like the powers always have been. That's why Shuri being the Black Panther was the only logical option for the story going forward after the tragic passing of Chadwick. And the name isn't the only thing being appropriated here. Going back to Star Panther, the story also has him appropriate Quill's relationship with Yondu. In the movies, we get to see the father-son relationship have time to be fully explained and to grow. In this show, however, they don't even have an hour to work with, so they give them the father-son dynamic for free, and it actually feels disgusting. It makes you wonder if there was anything special about Peter in the first place. It makes you worry that any kid could have been inserted into this bond depending on who Yondu happened to pick up. And that doesn't make this particular relationship feel special. It makes it feel coincidental, obligational, cheap. Okay, what was the point? This show came out around a year ago, maybe, and it was an episode that had almost no effect on anything in the MCU. Why do I care? Because Marvel is assassinating their characters for the sake of their soapbox, and while there's nothing about this particular case that stands out against the others, it riles me up especially because you don't mess with my favorite characters and expect me not to throw a fit over it. And while T'Challa really isn't one of my favorite characters, he is really cool in his own right. You didn't have to turn him into someone he's not. His movie didn't quite do him justice, but Civil War sure did. If you're going to change everything about a character, then you really don't love that character as much as you may think. And I care about story integrity too. If you want to make something entirely yours, make an indie film. The characters you're working with in these big franchises, though, they're not really yours. Just like any other job, you do writing and movie making for others. Without the fans, you would be broke and out of a job. The fans like the characters because of who they are. And I'm not saying you can't have fun with these characters that you've been entrusted with, but respect is still due to them for the impact they've made on countless lives of those in your fandom. And unfortunately, respect is the main thing missing from this What If episode. I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. Midnights become my afternoons. When my depression works the graveyard shift, all of the people I ghosted stand there in the room. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis. I wake up screaming from dreaming. One day I'll watch as you're leaving, 'cause you got tired of my scheming. It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. At tea time, everybody agrees. I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero. It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me, hi. Everybody agrees, everybody agrees. It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me.